A couple of years back, right as the school year was wrapping up, it was the final day of 8th grade. The vibe was exactly what you'd picture for the last day of middle school, pure excitement mixed with tearful farewells. Kids were darting around, scribbling signatures and silly notes in each other's yearbooks. My middle school was massive, with well over 1,000 students. To keep things organized, the teachers gathered our yearbooks and passed them around different classrooms so everyone who wanted could sign. You can probably guess how that setup could go wrong. Anyone could write anything in someone's yearbook, no filter. The teachers did their best to keep things civil, but I knew a few kids who slipped in some nasty messages for people they didn't get along with. When I got my yearbook back at the end of the day, I eagerly flipped through it, laughing at the goofy messages from my friends. But then something odd caught my attention. There was a signature under a photo of a kid I'd never seen before. His name was Samuel Robinson III, a name I'll never forget. His message was short, simple, and kind of creepy: "Have a great summer, I'll see you soon." I stared at it, totally confused. I'd never even crossed paths with this Samuel guy. But with the school year over, there wasn't much I could do about it. I figured it was just some weird kid being strange or maybe a mix-up. So, I let it go. Later that evening, I was at home, hosting a sleepover in my basement with my best buddies, Kevin, David, and Kieran. The four of us were munching on Doritos and playing Call of Duty into the night. My parents' bedroom was 3 floors up, so we didn't worry about keeping quiet. Around 2 a.m., we were goofing around on my dad's rowing machine when a sharp knock came from the storm door. It stopped us dead in our tracks. Who would knock on the storm door at that hour? It had to be someone who either didn't want to disturb my parents or knew we were down there, maybe both. It didn't add up. The knocking continued, steady and rhythmic. Before I could stop him, Kieran loudly demanded, "Who's there?" I could have throttled him. He just announced to whoever was out there that we were in the basement. My basement has no outside windows, so it's unlikely they knew we were there before Kieran's outburst. After a long pause, the knocking stopped, and a muffled voice responded, "Come to the back door." It was high-pitched, almost cheerful, like a friend trying to crash the sleepover. It was definitely a teenager's voice, not someone faking a higher pitch. I was freaked out, no question. But my friends? They acted like it was some thrilling mystery. They pushed me to check it out, and despite my gut screaming no, I gave in to the peer pressure. We tiptoed upstairs, trying not to make a sound. I crept toward the back door, my heart pounding like crazy. Through the slim glass panel next to the door, I saw a shadowy figure under the faint porch light. As I inched closer, his face came into focus, and my stomach dropped. It was him, Samuel Robinson III, the kid who signed my yearbook. My friends moved to open the door, for reasons I'll never understand, but I stopped them, whispering that I knew who it was. I quickly filled them in on the yearbook message, and that shifted their mood a bit. Meanwhile, Sam was still standing outside, clearly able to see us through the glass. He must have noticed my panic because he started gesturing toward the side of the house, like he wanted me to go to a window. You're probably wondering why we weren't taking this more seriously. Honestly, I think it's because he wasn't some creepy old guy, just a kid from our school. Still, I wasn't about to open the door. Instead, I went to the kitchen window and cracked it open just a sliver. My friends hung back a bit, watching. Sam walked over, and I asked what he wanted, mentioning I recognized him from the yearbook. He grinned and said, "Oh, so you saw my note?" He introduced himself as Sam and then said he'd always noticed me from a distance, claiming we could have been great friends. I nodded along, not wanting to set him off, but there was no way I'd ever be friends with this kid, no matter the situation. I didn't want to push too hard, but I had to know, so I asked how he knew where I lived. He didn't answer, and I was at a loss for words. Before I could calm things down, David shouted, calling him a creepy stalker and telling him to get lost. Sam's smile vanished. He tilted his head, like he couldn't process what David had just said. Then, out of nowhere, his expression twisted into something I can only describe as pure rage. Just moments ago, he seemed calm, almost friendly, but suddenly, he became furious and aggressive. He started shouting at me, yelling about how he despised my friends and wished we'd all die. He even mentioned things about my ex that he had absolutely no way of knowing. He lunged toward the window, trying to pry it open, but I quickly slammed it shut and locked it. He began growling and banging on it like some kind of animal. I genuinely thought he was about to smash it in. The noise must have been loud, because my parents came rushing downstairs, confused and half asleep, demanding to know what was going on. That's when Sam bolted. I quickly explained what had happened, and my dad ran outside, barefoot and in his boxers, to find him. He returned minutes later, shaking his head. Sam had disappeared. Strangely, my parents didn't contact the police. They said they'd deal with the school in the morning, wanting to give the kid the benefit of the doubt. When they did contact the school, we learned something deeply unsettling. Sam had actually been expelled weeks before the school year ended. He shouldn't have even been on campus. His photos still appeared in the yearbook because they were printed before his expulsion. So, he must have snuck into the school just to leave that message for me, which honestly scared the hell out of me. Despite cooperating with the school staff, no one could track Sam down. It was like he, and his entire family, vanished. The school did their best to keep it quiet. To this day, I still have no clue how he found my house. That's what unsettles me the most. People assume he was just a mentally unstable kid who got weirdly obsessed with me and followed me for who knows how long. My parents were paranoid for weeks. We don't really bring it up anymore, it's too disturbing, but living in that same house never felt the same afterward. Now, my friend Garrett? Let's just say he's intense. And I don't mean in a fun way. He's one of those guys who brags about how wild and violent he is like it's a badge of honor. Constantly picking fights, mouthing off, and practically living at the gym. I could tell you 5 different stories involving Garrett, but this one tops them all, and it involves me directly. It happened just a few weeks ago, on the last official day of senior year, May 2019. Graduation wasn't for a few more days, but we were basically done. It's kind of a tradition at our school for the seniors to get completely wasted after finishing classes, and that's exactly what we did. There's a big clock tower in the middle of campus, and that's where everyone met up to drink and celebrate. It was packed easily, over 1,000 people crammed into one area. It was bittersweet for me, but I think everyone was mostly relieved that finals were over. I could tell you about a bunch of other senior traditions, but I'll keep it short. Our group was 6 people, me, C, T, R, N, and of course, Garrett. I'm only using initials to protect their privacy. We all lived off campus, which meant we had to walk back through the city. This city has a decent-sized homeless population, so it's not unusual to come across someone late at night. Anyway, as we were walking home from the clock tower, something happened that was very Garrett. This homeless guy suddenly rushed up toward us, clearly high and acting erratically. Usually, the unhoused folks around here keep to themselves, lost in their own world, but this guy was locked in on us. He was yelling like he was guarding a secret passageway or something, just standing in the middle of the crosswalk screaming nonsense. We tried to steer clear, walking in a wide arc to avoid provoking him. Well, all of us except Garrett. Instead of ignoring him, Garrett started shouting back. Told the guy to move and stop yelling at strangers. Of course, the man didn't like that and stepped toward Garrett like he wanted to fight. We all jumped in to de-escalate things. That seemed to work, the guy backed off a little, went back to just screaming. I grabbed Garrett's arm to pull him away, but he jerked free. Then, without warning, Garrett sprinted at the guy yelling, "I'm freaking insane." The guy turned and ran, which made Garrett laugh hysterically. I know it sounds bad, but it was weirdly funny. Like watching someone charge into a group of pigeons and scatter them. Thinking it was over. But then, we noticed the guy was following us. When he saw us looking back, he started ranting again, saying we'd made a big mistake, and muttering something about calling a niche, whatever that meant. We shouted back a few jokes, thinking he might leave us alone, but if anything, we only made him angrier. I'm not exactly proud of how things unfolded that night. We were all in a celebratory mood, about to graduate from a top-tier university, and had been drinking all night, so let's just say our judgment wasn't the sharpest. About a block away from our place, we realized the guy from earlier was still tailing us, though he'd fallen back a bit. I told the group I didn't feel good about heading home while being followed, and the others seemed to agree. But of course, Garrett didn't wait for a decision. He suddenly darted off toward the homeless man again. Just like last time, the man took off running the other way. Garrett jogged back to us with a laugh, and we continued up the road toward the house. We figured that was the end of it. When we got back, we were pretty sure we'd shaken him. I won't even get into what we did once we were inside. Let's just say it was a chaotic blur I'm not in a rush to relive. I don't even know what time it was when I stumbled outside to grab my DoorDash order, but something immediately felt off. The side gate to our backyard was wide open. We normally kept it tied shut with a piece of string, so seeing it ajar meant someone had taken the time to undo it. I put two and two together. It had to be the guy. I had enough awareness to recognize the danger, but not enough to handle it the right way. Instead of waking my friends, I decided in my drunken state to check it out myself. I left the food on the porch and made my way around the house, trying not to sway too much. As I turned the corner into the backyard, something tightened around my neck. It was a rope. Before I could react, someone had looped it from behind and started pulling, hard. I thrashed and kicked, but it was useless. The rope dug into my skin, the rough edges scraping my neck raw. He was putting all his strength into it, and for a moment, I really thought I was going to die. I managed to kick backward with everything I had, and it threw him off balance. We both hit the ground hard, and I gasped for air. He was still on top of me though, and suddenly he started clawing at my face. I could feel the warm sting of blood running down my cheeks. I shoved him off with everything I had, and he scrambled to his feet and vanished into the night. I'll keep the rest short. I ended up in the ER that night. The injuries weren't serious, but I needed a series of shots in case he had anything contagious. The cops didn't help much, and since I was moving out the next week, I just let it go. The worst part? Every single graduation photo shows the cuts on my face. Garrett felt terrible. He took me to Nobu as an apology, but I never blamed him too much. I just hoped he learned something about messing with desperate strangers. Back in 7th grade, there was this kid named Sven who was different. He barely talked to anyone, even when other kids tried to include him. I didn't share every class with him, but I always noticed he'd sit in the exact same spot, back corner, far from the door. He wore the same thing every day, baggy burgundy hoodie and cargo shorts. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his voice was unusually deep. Some of the kids teased him for it. I never saw him with any friends. Once, my buddy Tyler caught him cutting up worms during recess. I think he got detention for that. During recess, he'd just stand by the fence near the woods, always alone. Never joined in games or even seemed to watch them. Some kids swore they saw him talking to someone past the fence, but I never saw it myself, so I won't make claims I can't confirm. He had plenty of odd habits, but nothing that seemed too far beyond typical weird middle school behavior, at least, not until the last day of school. We went to a big school, so multiple classes from the same grade were always happening at once. There was this tradition where kids would sneak into random classrooms just to mess with the teachers. I think most teachers played along. I can't remember the exact time, but I do remember being in one of the rare classes I had with Sven. Kids from all over were in the room, many I didn't recognize. I was a rule follower growing up, so I never participated in the classroom chaos. My friends did though, and they always went to different rooms together. That meant I was usually left by myself, like that day. Sven was acting stranger than normal. I clearly remember how he kept bouncing his leg, like he was anxious. He was scanning the room constantly, like he was trying to find someone, or maybe keep track of someone. The number of unfamiliar kids in the room was higher than usual. 1 or 2, sure. But this was a lot. At some point, our teacher, I think her name was Ms. Bell, asked us to group up for an end-of-year activity. Nothing major. Most kids just used it as an excuse to talk. Then Ms. Bell stepped away to use the phone. She turned her back to us, and shortly after, another teacher walked in. They both stepped outside the door and started whispering. Ms. Bell found suspicious items in one of their backpacks and triggered the fire drill to evacuate the building quietly. Here's what stuck with me though. According to my mom, those kids had been let in by Sven. He had used the recess period to sneak them in through the side gate by the woods. It was one of the strangest things I've ever been a part of. I never saw Sven again.